The Sega CD. What a shitty console, am I right, guys?
Wrong!
Do you think this console is bad just because you played Wonder Dog and whatever the hell this is? Then let me tell you, you are wrong. Every console has its share of bad games, and James Rolfe, aka the guy that screams at bad video games, made a video on the Sega CD 10 years ago. This video was made to label the Sega CD as a shitty console, and holy shit is it incredibly biased. One thing I wanted to point out is his remark towards the loading times. He said they take centuries, I should grab a beer and wait, but I've had no issues with the loading. Most games actually get detected automatically, but that's just me. Anyhow, all he did was play bad games on the console. I mean, you can't claim a console to be shitty if you've only played the bad games. That's like calling the PlayStation 4 shit because you just played a bad game like Putty Squad. Oh, excuse me, how could I diss such a classic as Putty Squad? The legendary Putty Squad. Oh, I meant to diss games such as these. These are the shitty games. Look, the whole point I'm trying to make is that the Sega CD isn't shit. It's actually had some pretty good games and a pretty kick-ass loading screen. So join me as we talk about the Sega CD and its line of games. Or, you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to. I don't blame you. I haven't uploaded for like a fucking year. A lot of misconception follows the tracks of the Sega CD. Many believe that the only good game on there is Sonic CD and even to an extent, Night Trap. Again, this was mainly due to James' video on the console. But let's be real, while those games are good, the Sega CD had 159 games released for the console. Now unfortunately, we really can't talk about a lot of these games for a couple reasons. Number one is because for the life of me, I can't get some of these to load. I mean, I've tried at least 5 games, running into so many different issues that it's virtually impossible to analyze most of the good games for the console, unless I buy them. Now that wouldn't be an issue, except for number 2. They're fucking expensive. Also, currently as I'm writing this video, Emu Paradise was taken down, so it's a lot harder to come by Sega CD ISOs. I don't know how or why Sega CD games are so expensive, but buying them to analyze would not only take a lot of money, but a lot of time as well. So for this video, we're going to be looking at a small amount of games that I could fucking run, but I felt as though these games should be enough to say, hey, you should buy a Sega CD, or at the very least try to emulate one and get a game working on it, because these games do work. Fuck. Will I ever look back at these games in a future video if I buy them or get them working? Well, only time will tell. Let's kick things off with a Sega CD game, Road Avenger. I mean, how could you go wrong? This guy is literally breaking your windshield for crashing into his car. Are we sure this is Road Avenger or Road Rage the game?
Fuck you! Is that all?
The best way I can describe this game is if DDR met the original Mad Max. Now, of course, this being the Sega CD, it's legally obligated to have full motion video. If you are a Sega CD game and you aren't using that classic fine wine FMV, then what the fuck is wrong with you? Like I said, this game is pretty much just DDR. When it tells you to move left, you move left. When you move right, you move right. And when it tells you you're not good enough to live in this world and you should end it all, well, maybe it's time to put down the controller and play some Putty Squad. Fuck, I love Putty Squad. Seriously though, this game is pretty alright. Granted, you probably wouldn't want to play this game a second time due to it being repetitive at that point. The first playthrough is pretty fun. This game is actually fully animated in FMV glory, so you do get some nice visual appeal when playing. And I mean, holy shit, some of the shit in here is brutal. Yeah, don't mind me, I'm just gonna run this motorcyclist off the road. Yeah, excuse me while I launch my car into this beach full of people. Seriously, someone died this day. This is not something to joke about. This is definitely a good game to add to the collection. I mean, even if it's just fucking crazy, alright? It's not too long either if you're good at it. I mean, this long play of the game is 25 minutes, so I'm assuming if you're not good at these kind of games, it'd be a lot longer since it is based off of trial and error. But regardless, it's pretty fun. I think people would like it if you just gave it a chance. And this was on fucking AVGN's video, and he called it shit. Like, it's not. It's a pretty fun game. Next on the list is Rise of the Dragon. And no, this is not a take on Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon or Way of the Dragon. It's actually very, very different. Unfortunately, this one I cannot run on the emulator, which is a pretty damn shame because this one looks pretty good from the gameplay I've seen. If you know me, I'm a sucker for cyberpunk noir, and this one's a pretty good take on the genre. This game was originally released on the Amiga. What the fuck is an Amiga? But the definitive port is for the Sega CD with enhanced graphics, video, and even voice acting. Not much I can say about it since I can't play it, but I have seen some gameplay of it, and this game has everything you need in a point-and-click adventure game. Good story, pretty decent voice acting, and an interesting world to explore. Plus, it has fucking dragons, man. You can't go wrong with dragons. One stupid fucking thing in this game, though, is that this game is supposed to be based off of Blade Runner or inspired by it, and they named the main character Blade Hunter. Yes, I'm not joking. The main character's name is Blade Hunter. What? All jokes aside, though this is a very good text adventure game and you should definitely pick it up and add it to your collection, give it a shot, this isn't the best on the console. You know what I'm talking about. But we're saving that one for last. You would have never guessed, but there were actually some pretty good JRPGs on the Sega CD. Now, unfortunately, there was no Phantasy Star at the time, that one being one of the bigger known RPGs on the original Genesis. But there were titles such as Popful Mail and Lunar Star. Popful Mail, which is my favorite out of the bunch for being so unique, is an interesting take on the RPG genre, combining both side-scrolling with RPG elements and having some pretty funny dialogue. You also got that pretty bad 90s voice acting, so that just adds on top of the layer of humor.
I've got you now, Nutcracker. Your choice. Dead or alive, I still get to $500,000 gold reward.
Hey, you are a real funny girl. You make me laugh. Hey, you like a good joke? Ha! Boomba!
Lunar Star I couldn't get running no matter how hard I tried. I tried different versions, different fucking blah, blah, blah. I tried everything, right? It's a shame I can't get it running because I heard the combat system is pretty different from most JRPGs and it has an amazing story. Maybe it's better this way because it's not like I'd give a full in-depth review of both of these games to begin with because again, these are, RPGs. They do take a very long time to play and analyze. So I got a special gift for you guys. Here is your shortened, lazy as fuck 04deoxys version of both Popful Mail and Lunar Star. If you can get these games working on an emulator, definitely play them, especially Lunar Star. I heard it was, I'm very upset that I can't play that one. I'm going to try to get a physical copy so I can play it. I heard it's pretty good. All right. So if you can get these working on the emulator, get them working or pick up a physical copy. They're kind of expensive, but that's the price. Fuck. They're both pretty good. They're fun. Popful Mail is fun. Lunar Star, from what I've seen, looks pretty good. Maybe I'll do a video on Lunar Star in the future. Like I said, maybe I'll do a video of these games I can't play in the future. I don't know. We don't know. I don't know. I need to get money for this game. So, yeah. Enjoy. Hopefully you can get it working. Let's move on to the next game. I just want to, state something. What a great video so far. Am I right, guys? Here I am trying to defend a console I actually really like, and most of the good games I can't fucking play. So, yeah. Sorry. Let's talk about a game I can actually play. Night Trap. Good luck trying to get this to run on your emulator. It's 2 CDs. That's always been an issue for emulators, at least for me. But there is a port for the Switch that just got recently released, so that's how I'm playing Night Trap. Night Trap is a cult classic on the Sega CD. Whenever someone mentions the console, Night Trap is usually the second game to be brought up to discussion next to Sonic CD. And for good reason, this game's actually pretty fun. The main gimmick of this game is that you're monitoring several cameras inside of a house. What I presume to be burglars are breaking into the house, and it's your task to set off these traps loaded around the house. Is loaded a word? I don't think so. I don't know what I was trying to say with that. I'm sorry you had to listen to that. Essentially, you're trying to rid the house of all burglars. If too many get into the house or someone gets killed, it's game over and you have to start from the beginning. At times, it can be a bit frustrating. One thing that really confused me was why sometimes my traps didn't work. I mean, I fucking pressed every single button, but they didn't work. I legit had to read the instructions. It turns out that in the FMV that's playing, the owners of the house change the color of the code periodically, and you actually have to watch to find out what color they change it to. I gotta admit, there is quite a bit of skill factor to this game, and you would never have expected it with something like this. You have to be constantly checking around the house for burglars, you need to watch the FMV to see if the owner or anyone else is talking about switching the code. I mean, it's really not easy. A lot of trial and error comes into effect when playing this game. But I won't lie, it's really, really fun. The Switch port is definitely the definitive port, no shit, but the nice thing about it is that it gives you a bunch of bonus options, as well as customization options. You can actually make the game look like it was playing on an original Sega CD, which I found pretty clever. Is it without its faults? Not necessarily. At times it could be frustrating because you may have just missed a burglar and have to search throughout the house to see where he went. Another thing is that you will be definitely restarting this game a lot. A really beneficial addition to this game, or even the Switch port, would be some kind of checkpoint system so you don't have to restart from the fucking beginning. That can kind of get annoying sometimes. And of course, you got that fantastic 90s acting.
I just wanted to...
Is everybody all right? Hey, look, I don't think it's a good idea for you to be hanging around here at night. Why don't you just go home, okay?
Wait, you're in danger.
You seen those things too? What are they?
Well, they're called augurs, or augs, and they're like a vampire.
You mean they suck blood?
Yeah. Well, it's nothing personal. It's the only way they can keep alive. Most of them are so hungry the skin keeps falling off their bones. That's why they dress so funny.
Can I at the very least say I had fun playing this? Yeah, definitely. It's really fun. It's an enjoyable challenge and definitely worth the $12 on the Nintendo eShop. And if you really want to also, this is one of the cheaper games for the Sega CD. It starts as low as $50. This is definitely a fun game. You should definitely give it a shot if you're a good person. You watch my videos and actually, accept my opinions. What the fuck am I doing? Night Trap. Go buy it. Now, there are a bunch of other great games I could recommend, but this video isn't meant to be terribly long. We're going to be talking about the two big titans of the console and move on from there. But if you're looking for some good Sega CD games to add to your collection, I'll leave a link to an article going over some great games not featured in this list. Anyhow, let's talk about probably the most popular game and the main selling point made for the Sega CD. That's right, Sonic CD. Sonic CD is one of those games you gotta have if you own a Sega CD. For the longest time up until Mania's release, Sonic CD was debatably the best Sonic game ever released. Now, how much truth there is to that statement is up for debate, but there's definitely good reason why so many people thought it was the best Sonic game. It's a lot of fun. You got speedy blue, swinging music, and some great level design. One gimmick this game added was the ability to go to the past or to the future, altering your playthrough with different routes you could take. This game would also be the first to introduce Metal Sonic, a series staple character as time went on with the development of Sonic games. I also think this game is what inspired that weird Sonic OVA, but I could be wrong. Now, I'm not here to talk about that fun is infinite screen or any cut content. That's what Cybershell is for. I mean, there's not much that I can say that everyone already knows about, pretty much all classic Sonic games. You run around loop-de-loops, save animals, except this one has a little neat twist to it. I don't necessarily think it's better than Sonic 3, and it's most certainly not better than Mania, but that doesn't mean it's not a great and fun game, because it is. This game is so good, in fact, that it's been ported many times. They released a mobile port, which was pretty good. It added a bunch of features and the option to listen to the original Japanese soundtrack, which is also pretty swinging. You can also get this game on Steam with all the added features the mobile port offers. This one's also one of the more relatively cheap Sega CD games, so if you want to start your collection, start with this one. It's pretty fun. Figurative thumbs up from 04deoxys. Yeah. Now, most people would think that's it, right? We covered the best 2 games on the Sega CD, Night Trap and Sonic CD. There is a game on the Sega CD. This game is by far the best on the console. That's right, better than Sonic CD, better than Night Trap, better than this fucking game. And I'm shocked that Angry Video Game Nerd never mentioned this game in his video or any future videos revisiting the Sega CD. Because this game definitely makes up for all the other garbage released on the Sega CD. What is this game, you may be asking? Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Snatcher. Holy fucking shit, Snatcher is an amazing game. If I've never played Strange Journey, this would have taken the spot for all-time favorite game. It's just so good in so many ways I can't even begin to explain. But I'll try my damn hardest. Snatcher is set in the year 2047 and is labeled as a cyberpunk noir. Already, that fucking intrigues me because I am in love with anything that has cyberpunk noir in its marketing. The story is so well written. I was thoroughly impressed throughout the entire playthrough. Tensions were high at times, there were plenty of comedic breaks, and it all wraps up together so nicely. Who made this game? Hideo fucking Kojima? The man behind Death Stranding, the man behind the Metal Gear series, this fucking legend made this spectacular game. One thing I love so much about this game is how interactive the world is. There's so many different dialogue options, optional side stories, and just so many different things you can do in this world he made. Seriously, this world is fucking big. It's very big and very interesting. This game also features voice acting, which actually isn't that bad. I was shocked hearing the voice acting because typically it was pretty bad or not even good for most Sega CD games. Now don't get me wrong, it's not terrific, but it's definitely better than most Sega CD games that feature voice acting. And fuck man, the soundtrack is fucking kick-ass. Snatcher originally released on the MSX and was ported to the PC-88 as well as the TurboGrafx CD before the Sega CD, so all the tracks were remade to fit onto the Sega Genesis sound chip. And I feel with the Yamaha 2612 chip, it was possible to produce music that sounded more futuristic and cyberpunk. Some tracks like Pleasure of Tension sound a lot better on the Sega CD versus the TurboGrafx CD. Now, that's not to say some renditions were kind of butchered for the Sega CD port. Songs like Blow Up Tricycle and Morgue sound a hell of a lot better on the TurboGrafx CD and even the MSX. It's really a mixed bag on which renditions you feel sound better or worse, but personally, I love the Sega CD soundtrack. It really captures that cyberpunk feel with its heavy bass and other futuristic instruments only the Sega Genesis can provide. One neat feature to Snatcher is being able to use a light gun. Now obviously if you're emulating this, you cannot use the light gun, and even then if you own a copy and playing it on a modern TV, the light gun feature isn't really going to be playable, so you gotta stick with the regular controller, which is perfectly fine. Though if you can, I would strongly recommend grabbing an older TV and playing it with the light gun, because I feel like that's the best experience you can get with Snatcher. There will be times within the story where you have to shoot your enemy, adding more to the already rising tension and stakes within the story. This is pretty unique for a text adventure game, and definitely fun. Be sure to save often though, because if you lose these gunfights, it's game over. There's not much more that I can say that won't spoil the game or the story. I mean, all I can say is that it's a very fun game with a clever and interesting story. The characters are all likable and unique, the music is fantastic, and the exploration and interactivity with the game is very, very impressive. Now, while I do proudly own a physical copy of the game, that doesn't mean you should go out and buy one unless you're adamant on completing your game collection or just want to add this great game to it. The game is close to $600, so if you don't want to break a bank, I suggest emulating this game. This is definitely one of the more rare games on the Sega CD. Actually, I think it might be the rarest on the console, but I could be wrong. Regardless, this is definitely a must-play if you're a fan of visual novels and cyberpunk setting. Trust me, you will not be let down. Fucking Hideo Kojima made this game, how could you be let down? And that's the Sega CD, everybody! Now, like I said, the console isn't without its garbage games. There were way too many of them that just kinda gave the console a bad reputation, alongside the angry video game nerds shitting all over it. But remember, you can't disregard all the other great games released on the console. Since there are plenty of great games on the console, and because Snatcher's on the fucking console, I can safely say that the Sega CD is actually worth the investment, and it's not a bad console to own. Snatcher alone would have been enough to say that the Sega CD isn't shit, but with other great games like Sonic CD, Lunar, Night Trap, I mean, how could you say it's a bad console with those kind of games on it? There's more than meets the eye with some of these older consoles, and you shouldn't always trust an angry, screaming man when trying to determine if something's bad or good. Honestly, it's up to you to decide if you like it or not, unless you're playing something completely bad or broken. But hey, that's all for this video. Hopefully I won't see you again after a year has passed, and who knows, maybe more content will appear regularly. I don't know. What I do know is that I put some effort into making this, so I appreciate you watching until the end. Hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.